The dining room carried the familiar Sunday aroma of slow-roasted lamb, fresh rosemary from Mom's garden, and the faint citrus edge of the lemon polish she still applied to the oak table every weekend. Crystal water glasses caught the late afternoon light, slanting through the tall windows. Forks rested against porcelain plates in the polite pause between main course and dessert. Then Ethan rose at the head of the table, Dad's chair, the one with the slightly worn right armrest from years of him leaning forward during family debates, and the room hushed without him asking. Effective immediately, he said, voice measured and deliberate, the way he used to practice speeches for debate club in high school. I'm restructuring the holding company. He didn't wait for reactions. He simply slid a thick black folder across the polished surface. The papers fanned slightly as they came to rest in front of Uncle Marcus. Ethan kept his gaze moving around the table. Mom, Aunt Lydia, Uncle Marcus, Cousin James, skipping me entirely. Dad's doctors made it official last month. He can't manage the day-to-day anymore. The family needs stability, not sentimentality. We can't keep running on emotional leadership when the numbers are this tight and the market is this volatile. The word emotional landed with surgical precision. Too attached, too hesitant, too much like the women in the family who had always been praised for nurturing the home, but quietly excluded from the balance sheets. I sat with my hands folded in my lap, breathing slow and even, letting his words settle like fine dust over the linen tablecloth. Aunt Lydia was first to nod. It's about time someone took the will with both hands, she said softly. Uncle Marcus opened the folder, skimmed the cover page, and gave a low, approving sound in his throat. Mom stared at her water glass, watching tiny bubbles rise and vanish against the side. Ethan continued without pause, laying out his plan in clean phases. Asset reallocation to reduce exposure, streamline governance bylaws, a consolidated board with fewer conflicting voices. Every sentence had been polished until it gleamed strategic, reluctant, necessary. He concluded by announcing that updated ownership documents would be distributed tomorrow for electronic signatures. Ownership. Without a single conversation with me. I folded my napkin once, precisely laid it beside my plate, and stood. I'll start the coffee, I said quietly. No one argued. Ethan exhaled, shoulders dropping half an inch in visible relief, as though the hardest part were already done. That night the house slept under a blanket of February quiet. I didn't. I climbed the narrow back stairs to the room that had been mine since childhood, still kept with the same pale blue quilt, the same bookshelf crammed with dog-eared paperbacks and old field guides. I unlocked the small drawer beneath the writing desk, the one with the brass key Dad had pressed into my palm the day he left the hospital. The envelope waited exactly where I had placed it 3 years earlier. Edges crisp, seal intact. I carried it to the window seat, sat in the cold moonlight filtering through the frost-etched glass, and opened it. Certified copies. 23 pages of dense, numbered legal prose. On page 7, the clause that mattered most. Effective this date, all majority controlling interest, 51% voting rights, unilateral authority over structural amendments, asset dispositions, board appointments, and major financial decisions irrevocably transferred to Abigail Grace Whitmore. Dad's signature trembled at the bottom, but every loop and cross was his. Notarized on hospital letterhead by 2 staff witnesses who had no connection to the family. Attached, a physician's declaration of competency dated 72 hours after the emergency bypass. Irrevocable language appeared in 3 separate sections, each more explicit than the last, reinforced with bold type and underlined phrases. He hadn't given me a token share for sentiment. He had handed me the entire steering mechanism and the ignition key. I photographed every page under the desk lamp's warm circle of light, sealed the originals in a waterproof sleeve, and at 7 the next morning drove to the downtown branch to place them in a safe deposit box registered solely to me. Then I called Mr. Hargrove, the attorney whose embossed name appeared on the footer of every document. His office smelled of old leather bindings and fresh ground coffee. He reviewed the file in silence for almost 25 minutes, glasses riding low on his nose, occasionally making a small notation on a legal pad. When he spoke, it was without drama. You are the controlling shareholder. Full stop. Your brother possesses no unilateral authority, none whatsoever. to propose, initiate, execute, or even circulate drafts of any restructuring, amendment, or transfer without your express written consent. The documents are airtight. I asked the question I had rehearsed in the car on the way over. If he attempts it anyway? Hargrove removed his glasses, set them carefully on the blotter, and met my eyes. Unauthorized representation of the corporation. Breach of fiduciary duty, at minimum. Civil liability almost certain. Criminal exposure if intent to defraud is provable. And page 12 contains an exceptionally robust fail-safe provision. I had read it twice already. Any attempt to circumvent, misrepresent, or override controlling authority triggered an automatic, irrevocable downward adjustment of the challenger's future beneficial interest under the family trust, scaled according to the severity of the breach, with determination by independent arbitration if contested. Dad had planted a quiet, delayed detonation device beneath the foundation, calibrated for exactly this scenario. I thanked Mr. Hargrove, left with 6 certified copies in a leather portfolio, and drove home listening to nothing but the hum of the heater. The erosion had begun so gradually, I almost convinced myself I was imagining it. Emails titled Estate Planning Update started arriving addressed to everyone except me. Family Zoom calls were rescheduled for Tuesday evenings when I was known to have Pilates, though no one had ever asked my weekly schedule. Voices dropped when I stepped into the kitchen. Conversations resumed at normal volume when I left. Ethan's favorite phrases became a quiet drumbeat. We already covered this in the group chat. The consensus was clear. It's best not to complicate things with too many opinions. One rainy Thursday, I overheard him in the pantry with cousin James while I was supposed to be in the laundry room folding towels. Abby's heart is absolutely in the right place, he said, voice low and reasonable. But she's too sensitive for the kind of pressure this level of decision-making requires. Dad understood that. That's why he kept her out of the operational side. Too sensitive. The phrase wasn't shouted. It was delivered like a medical diagnosis. Calm, clinical, final. That made it cut deeper. I didn't confront anyone. I documented. Every excluded email forwarded to a private folder. Every rescheduled meeting noted with timestamps. Every sidelong glance or sudden silence recorded in a private journal I kept on an encrypted drive. The archive grew quietly, methodically. 7 days after the announcement, Ethan sent a polished group email to the extended family. Proposed restructuring timeline attached. New operating agreement draft included. First restructured board meeting tentatively scheduled for March 15th. Signature block. Ethan Whitmore, acting managing authority. Acting. I forwarded the entire message to Hargrove with 3 words. He is filed. The bank moved faster than either of us expected. Within 48 hours, a crisp notification landed in my inbox. Proposed change in ownership and authorized signatories rejected. Submitted documents conflict with current registered controlling party of record. Direct verification required from Abigail G. Whitmore, controlling shareholder. I didn't call the bank. I didn't need to. The institutional machinery corrected the error automatically. At the following Sunday dinner, Ethan referred to minor administrative delays with the paperwork. His tone remained even, professional, but he avoided meeting my eyes across the candles. For the first time, the room felt subtly unbalanced. Relatives' glances drifted toward me, not in accusation, but in dawning curiosity. He shifted tactics to emotional containment. Over coffee, he told Aunt Lydia I was being difficult, clinging to outdated arrangements out of pride, not seeing what's best for the long-term health of the family. Mom pulled me aside in the laundry room one gray afternoon, her voice barely above a whisper. Abby, sweetheart, why are you fighting him on this? Ethan's only trying to protect what your father spent 40 years building. I looked at her steadily. Protect it from what, Mom? She opened her mouth, closed it again. No answer existed because no attack had been launched. Only facts waiting for their moment in the light. On Thursday, I sent the group text. Let's review all original governing documents together this Sunday after brunch. Full transparency. I'll bring the complete file. Ethan replied in under 90 seconds, of course, looking forward to complete clarity. He still believed the documents would support him. Sunday arrived cold and crystalline. The same table. The same good china. Ethan arrived 20 minutes early, set up a projector on the sideboard, and walked the family through colorful slides, projected cash flow curves under the new structure, governance flowcharts with his name circled in confident blue, bullet points promising legacy preservation and unity. He spoke of responsibility, stewardship, the future. When he finished, applause was polite, but sparse. I waited until the projector fan clicked off. Then I rose, not claiming the head of the table, but standing beside my usual chair where the light fell clearest, and placed a slim navy folder in the exact center of the oak. Before any vote or signature is considered, I said quietly, let's review the controlling amendment executed 3 years ago in the presence of medical witnesses. I opened to page 7 and read aloud, each word measured and unhurried. Majority controlling interest, 51% voting rights and final authority on all structural changes, amendments, asset dispositions, and board appointments, transferred irrevocably to Abigail Grace Whitmore, effective immediately upon execution. Silence swallowed the room whole. Ethan produced a short, strained laugh. That has to be outdated. Dad was heavily medicated after surgery. He wasn't in a state to. I turned the page without comment. Medical competency certificate signed by the attending cardiologist. Witness affidavits from 2 registered nurses. Date stamped 72 hours post-procedure. Irrevocable clauses triple underlined in the original. The laugh died in his throat. I connected my phone to the speaker dock and dialed Hargrove on speaker. His voice filled the dining room, calm and precise as ever. He confirmed date of execution, authenticity of signatures, current legal standing. Then the sentence that altered the air pressure in the room. Any restructuring, amendment, transfer of authority, or material change to governance requires the express written consent of the controlling shareholder, Ms. Whitmore. Absent that consent, such actions are void ab initio. Ms. Whitmore, not Abby, not sister, authority. I laid printed screenshots across the table next, private messages Ethan had sent to cousins, aunts, uncles over the preceding 18 months. Once we sideline her, the rest falls into place smoothly. She'll fold when she sees the family united behind the plan. She doesn't have the head for complex financial structures anyway. Mom pressed a hand to her mouth. Uncle Marcus stared fixedly at the grain of the oak. Ethan's face drained until it matched the white of the tablecloth. There is one final section, I said, turning to page 12. I read the protection clause aloud in full. Then I added, almost gently, the unauthorized filing submitted to the bank last week activated the provision. The downward adjustment to beneficiary percentages is already in process through the trust administrator. Ethan blinked slowly once, twice. Fix it, he whispered. It isn't broken, I said. It is functioning precisely as your father designed it to function. He tried to speak. Something about protecting the family, about miscommunication, about good intentions, but the words fractured and fell apart. No one interrupted. No one rushed to his defense. Hargrove confirmed over the open line. The reduction was irrevocable absent my express waiver. I offered none. The meeting ended without votes, without signatures, without resolution. People left in near silence, coats rustling, car doors closing softly in the driveway. Ethan remained seated long after the room emptied, staring at the scattered pages as though they might rearrange themselves into a different story. The next family dinner was transformed without anyone naming the change. No projector, no binders, no timeline handouts. Ethan spoke little and listened more. Mom chose the chair beside mine instead of across the table. Conversation stayed light. Grandchildren's school projects, spring planting plans, Aunt Lydia's new rose trellis, but the balance had shifted irreversibly. A week later, he asked to speak privately, not in the dining room, but in Dad's old study with its worn leather chairs and shelves of accounting texts. He looked diminished, shoulders narrower, eyes shadowed, voice quieter than I had ever heard it. I thought you'd fight, he said. I thought there'd be yelling, tears, something I could point to and say, see? This is why. I didn't fight, I told him. I verified. He nodded once, slowly, as though absorbing the distinction for the first time. I thought Dad trusted me more. He trusted you to react, I said. He trusted me to listen. Timing matters. Silence stretched between us, not hostile, only honest. Over the months that followed, I instituted quiet, structural changes. Mandatory quarterly reports distributed to every shareholder. Written approvals required for any transaction exceeding $50,000. Full digital access to financials granted to anyone who requested credentials. Ethan signed the new operating agreement without objection or comment. He understood the alternative now. Questions began routing to me first, not because I demanded it, but because the legal record was unambiguous. He stopped announcing unilateral decisions. He started asking for input. Trust did not flood back overnight. Some glances still carried reservation. Some conversations remained careful, measured. But the sidelining ended. The whispers ended. The erosion stopped. I never celebrated his reduced share. I never gloated. I simply preserved what Dad had spent 4 decades building. A family enterprise engineered to outlast egos, not serve them. Late at night, when the house is quiet, I sometimes replay that first Sunday in my mind. Ethan standing tall at the head of the table, papers gliding smoothly across the oak, utterly certain the future belonged to him. If I had reacted then, anger, tears, accusations, he would have controlled the narrative from that moment forward. Instead, I let him construct his stage, step after confident step, until the spotlight finally came on and revealed the trapdoor he had never noticed beneath his feet. I didn't seize power. It had been entrusted to me 3 years earlier in a sterile hospital room by a man who understood that silence is not surrender. It is strategy. And strategy, when patient, is sharper than any outburst.